everybody. Today we're going to talk about the ties that bind and the ties that bond. I'll give a talk for whatever, 40, 45 minutes, and then we'll have a break and we'll go into our usual groups. And during your group work, I hope that what you'll do is work on what we've talked about this morning. So this is all about family. And our job is to sever, to cut the ties that bind, and to honor the ties that bond. And I'll explain what all of that means in a minute. But first, the planet Saturn has rings around it. The rings are made of many, many millions of little pieces of ice. And by some miracle, they're all spinning around in these beautiful patterns. Wandering through the rings of Saturn are over 90 separate moons. One of them has a funny name. Called Enceladus. And at first glance, this moon looks like all other moons that we've seen so far in the universe. In other words, it just looks like a big ball of ice and frozen rock. But as we humans have gotten better at space exploration, we've gotten closer to this moon physically and through the Hubble in the sky telescope, the one that's out there in space. And we started to see something funny about this little moon, and that is that instead of just being a big ball of ice, it has these cracks in it. It has these fissures and canyons. Crazier than that is that inside these fissures and canyons, we have these geysers, these eruptions, these little volcanoes. And it turns out that this moon that's circling around the planet Saturn, unlike most of the other moons that we know so far, is constantly having little explosions because, of course, it has a core, as the Earth does, as the Sun does, as everything does, of immense heat. The question is, why would this moon behave differently from all the other moons? And the answer is this. All of the other moons, following the great principle of the universe, which is gravity, all of the other moons are happily going around in a circular orbit, over and over and over again. But Enceladus, for reasons we're not quite sure, is going like this, sort of. It's an elliptical path. It's kind of a crazy path. It's an irregular path. Let's say that's Saturn. So instead of doing what all the other moons are doing, this thing's wandering all over the crazy place. Its relationship to its core, to its primary element, Saturn, is irregular. Sometimes it gets close to Saturn, sometimes it wanders away. We're not quite sure why yet. What we are sure of is the net result is it keeps exploding, having these little geysers. So one of my new interests and hobbies in life is astronomy. So you have to put up with my latest interest. And that little moon with its little geysers that wanders around, I am now thinking of a metaphor for addiction. Everybody else in the community who is not an addict is going around in a relatively straightforward circle around their primary core, mom and dad, the family. The family is the seat of all love and all hate, and all sadness, and all joy, and all grief, and all misery, and all anger, and all recriminations, and all kindness, and all generosity. It all begins and ends with our families. Our job is to figure out what we've inherited and what we're going to do about it. Instead of just going around in some crazy, irregular pattern and blowing up regularly. Because one of the things I'm going to demonstrate in the next 40 minutes is that even though you think your addiction is oxy, crystal meth, gin, whatever, in fact, that's not your addiction. It's just a manifestation of your central addiction. And you know what your addiction is? Melodrama. Addicts are addicted to melodrama. God forbid you should have a quiet day. Right, Ted? God forbid you should have a regular day like your neighbors. You know, where you just go to work and put in your 8 hours and collect your paycheck and come home and talk to the kids and, you know, do whatever people do. Why would I want to do that when I can have the police, when I can have doctors, when I can have psychiatrists, when I can have therapy, when I can have excitement, when I can have my dealer, when I can have a fight with my spouse, when I can hit my kids, whatever, right? Melodrama. Addicts have these kinds of days. This is the days of an addict. And you have to ask yourself when you come to a place like the Orchard, is this how I want to continue my oscilloscope of life? Is this the pattern I want to continue? And the answer should be, fuck no. It's tiring. I'm exhausted. Enough already. I'm tired of this shit. It's time to smooth the waters a bit. Step one, I don't use anymore. Step two is everything else. Is all the other things we'll study. So, let's get to this core family. The family is the seat of everything. And what the family gives us, mom and dad, mom, dad, Uncle Harry, Aunt Janie, granddad, grandma, what they give us are these. They give us life scripts. They might as well just hand us the document in the crib. Because we are such good students, we take this thing that they've given us and we read it over and we absorb it right away and we take it in. And then we act it out for the rest of our lives. What are some of these life scripts? Bad girl. Bad boy. Why are you dressing like that to go to school today? Do you really think you can do that? That's not for you. You know, I'm just thinking that my late mother-in-law used to berate my son, who was an actor. That's not for you. Oh, university, she also said, university, that's not for you. Why isn't it for him? He's very smart. Where did she get this idea that university isn't for Sean? Or he isn't for university? I have no idea. It's her problem, but she had to tell him. For what? What did this accomplish? I have no idea. Our families give us these life scripts. And often, unfortunately, these life scripts are dire and ugly and unattractive and useless. You're not smart. You're stupid. Stupid boy, stupid girl. Blah, blah, blah. You'll never amount to anything. Famous true story. You know who Clark Gable was? Clark Gable was a giant movie star. His most famous role, he played Rhett Butler in Gone with the Wind. Clark Gable, in 1934, wins an Oscar for a comedy with Claudette Colbert called It Happened One Night. It's still very watchable, still very amusing, and they were both terrific. He wins the Oscar. I'm not making this up, it's a true story. He phones his dad in wherever, Podunk, Cowplop, Montana or somewhere. Hey, Dad, I won the Oscar. And what does his dad say? Clark, when are you going to get a real job? I mean, with friends like that, who needs enemies, right? I mean, thanks, Dad. Families are always coming up with classics like that. The stories are relentless. I had breakfast with an old friend of mine the other day. He's in his mid-80s. He tells me, but with amusement, that when he was 26 years old and already running the biggest, richest, most successful radio station in Vancouver history, which he built single-handedly, made a fortune for himself, made a fortune for the owners, his mother phones him. And she says, Bill, it's raining. Did you remember your rubbers? Thanks, Mom. Just what you need. You're 26, you're running the whole world, and your mom phones and you remember your rubbers. My cousin Shelley used to say to me, David, I'm the entertainment editor of the Toronto Star. It's the biggest newspaper in Canada. Our entertainment section is huge. I'm the fucking editor. I own my own house in downtown Toronto. I've survived the death of my first husband. I've dated other men. I'm an adult. I pay the bills. I go home to Winnipeg. I get off the plane. I get in my mother's Chevy Malibu. And in 3 minutes, I'm screaming like a banshee, because that's what my mother does to me. So unfortunately, many of us, anybody identify with what I'm talking about? Okay. Many of us can understand that often our parents' ideas of life scripts are not that helpful. Let me just check my notes, see if I left anything out. So what do we do with these life scripts? We either follow them blindly, or we hopelessly, madly try to fix them unconsciously. For example, people in the helping professions, I'm in the helping profession, nurses are particularly vulnerable to this. People who try to help people are often themselves wounded people. And unconsciously, they are driven to help other people. And in a sense, they're trying to help themselves. They're trying to solve the world's pain because they're trying to solve their own pain. I had a client here at the orchard some time ago who dated, she was kind of a serial dater. And she dated one guy after another. She wasn't, wildly promiscuous. She would date each guy for long periods of time and was committed to that person, but over and over and over again. What was she doing, among other things? Well, she was using these guys, these dates, to try to solve a core issue with her mother, with the primary person in her life. My daughter and my ex-wife have a codependent relationship. They're happily in this little nugget together, fighting with the whole world. Nothing I can do about it. It's their problem. I can't do anything about it. They have this particular relationship, full of love and hate, full of craziness, totally codependent. We had a client here a few months ago who I won't describe because some of you will recognize this person, but this person was joined at the hip with his or her mother. Totally joined at the hip. They were like one person. It was frightening to watch. Why is it frightening? Why do I say it's frightening? Because you don't want to be joined at the hip with your mother after you're 14. Your entire job in life, what did I do with that? See, 2,000-year-old man, there it is. Your entire job, a big part of your job in life is maturation, is growing up, is escaping the aura of these people who have nurtured you for good or bad, and becoming your own person. If you're a parent, you know a phenomenon called the terrible twos. That's when 2-year-olds say, no, 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 no. Whatever you say to them, no. And that's a normal, healthy thing. Because what that child is doing is declaring my boundaries. I never forgot my daughter when she was 2 or less than 2, going to the bathroom, looking in the toilet and going, "Ma poo." That's my poo. Okay? She's simply saying, aha, here's something I did. This is my product. Not mom's, not dad's. Ownership, mine. You get older, then ma poo has to change into my school project, my piano recital, my ballet demonstration, my baseball hit. And as we grow up, we have to declare our independence. One of the great spiritual leaders in the history of humankind said, the father has to kill the son. And he didn't mean literally stab. The son has to kill the father. Didn't mean that the son has to stab the father, but you have to at some point declare your independence from your father. If you do it well, if you survive that eruption called adolescence and puberty, if you do it reasonably well, then sooner or later you and your dad are sort of equals and you can be friends and love and respect each other. If you do it badly, then you don't have much of a relationship, or you spend your whole life flitting around the aura of your dad by being chased by the police, by getting arrested, by spending nights in drug tanks, by going to hospitals, by being a mental patient, by losing jobs, by having to come home when you're 35 and live off the folks. This is all crazy addictive behavior. None of it works, and all of it is an old movie. It's all a tiresome, tired old movie. And that's why you're at the Orchard, to learn about this and break it off, get out of it, escape from it, because it doesn't work. None of this works. So how do you do that? How do you break the ties that bind? And by the way, don't ever think for a second that these ties do not bind, because I've seen it in people who are 80, still acting out their childhood bullshit. I see it in myself. Fortunately, not as often as I used to see it. Why? Because I think about these things. Because I work on them. Because I don't want to be bound, tied up. I don't like being a prisoner of anything. I quit drinking and quit smoking pot when I was in my early 20s. It was meaningless to me. So I stopped. Didn't need it. I stopped using sugar when I was like 30-something. I just looked at the sugar bowl one day and I said, why do I use this crap? What do I need this for? My life is already like this. I know my personality. I'm a Scorpio. I'm mercurial. I'm an up and down person. I laugh easily and I cry easily. I get angry easily. I'm an emotional person. I'm not describing you, I'm describing me. You have to know you. I'm just telling you what I'm like. So, do I need sugar to yank my chain? You're already yanking my chain. People yank my chain. The ferry yanks my chain. Everything bugs me. Everything annoys me. Everything irritates me. What do I need sugar for? It's bad enough that I love espresso. I haven't read espresso yet. It's one of my fun addictions. It's an indulgence. Okay, so how do you get rid of this stuff? How do you break free of all these ties that are holding on to you? Trying to please. What about the people pleaser? The person who's always, oh yes, oh yeah. Okay, can I help you? Can I do something for you? The suckhole, the nerd, the people pleaser. Okay? Are any people pleasers in the room? Yes, of course. Absolutely. Many. How can you stop yourself from being a people pleaser? Many ways. But first you have to recognize this is what I do. I'm one of the people in the room who, for some reason or other, keeps going out of his way trying to serve everybody and please everybody. Well, when we do that, when this is us, and let's say this is our heart or our soul, and we keep giving it away constantly for free, what's left? Zipkins. Nothing. We keep giving ourselves away. We can't do that. We have to establish and maintain clear, reasonable boundaries. I'll tell you a vain story recently, because it just happened. It's complicated, but the simple version is a very interesting, very smart, attractive woman around my age just made a major pass at me. Very flattering. But I have no interest. Trust me, I'm not interested. So I run into her at a wedding. Then I have coffee with her the next day to talk. I think we're talking about business, but she has this not so under the table other agenda going on. And then she phones me, invites me for dinner. Whoa. So now I'm really, really messed up because I don't want this, I don't need it. So what can I do? So I say to her, we'll say her name is Jane, which it isn't. I say, Jane, first of all, I decline the dinner invitation. I say, I'm sorry, I have a commitment. I don't tell her what the commitment is. It's none of her business. The commitment is, I'm not interested. The commitment is, I'm doing what I do, which doesn't involve you. I don't have to tell her, But then I feel, if I don't do something now, this isn't going to stop. See? So I say to her, Jane, I think you're an amazing person. And I'm sorry that so many years went by and we never sat down and talked, because I'm just so impressed with what you've been doing and the contribution you make to the community. And I'm really interested in you as a person who does good for the world. But I have to be honest with you, I have no romantic interest. That side of my life is accounted for, and I'm not going anywhere with that, okay? So of course she was gracious in accepting that information, and then hated me. You never want to have, in your life, you never want to have a woman scorned, because then they'll really get to you. Anyway, the point is, I had to draw my boundaries. I had to say, look, wonderful person, you and I aren't mixing bodily fluids. It's not going to happen. So let's just be clear, okay? So you just have to be clear. I mean, we're not children. We're adults, So you just have to be clear. We have to be clear with our families. I'll tell you a quick story. I'm 21. I have this big, beautiful old house at 8th and Burrard. It doesn't exist anymore. And at that point in my life, I'm there by myself. My mother, may she rest in peace, comes to visit from Winnipeg. She takes a bus. Takes her 2 days to get to Vancouver, 2.5 days. She arrived. You know, she's an old lady. She's tired. I've prepared a bedroom for her. We sit down in the kitchen. She's been in the house like 2 hours, and she starts ranting and raving. She hates the house, hates the curtains, hates the pictures on the wall. I'm some kind of a hippie. I'm a beatnik. I'm some kind of a bum. She doesn't like my lifestyle. Blah, 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 blah. So she rants and raves. And I say, Mother, we're not going to play the yelling game. What? I said, you know the yelling game? We're not playing it. The yelling game works like this. You yell, and I get upset, and then I yell, which allows you to calm down. Good for you. I'm not joining the game today. This infuriates her. She yells more. So I say, look, I made some soup. There's soup on the stove. I made a bedroom for you. This is my home. I love my home. You're my mother. I love you. You're welcome to stay. If you don't like my home, it's a big city. There are a lot of hotels. I'm going for a walk now, Mother. When I come back, I hope you'll have had a rest, and we can have dinner together. And I walk out of the house. All of this very quietly, very controlled. I get as far as the Burrard Bridge, and I'm sobbing. I'm just sobbing because this has taken so much psychological energy to pull this off. It has taken me so much hard work to establish this boundary with my mother, because I'm a boy, I'm a young man, I'm 20, 21, right? Of course I come home, she's left. This is my mother, she's left. She's torn up a book I was writing, you know, in anger. It's horrible. Later, of course, we got back to being mother and son, and, you know, and I adored her. We had a wonderful time in her later years. But that little declaration for me was significant, and it was hard won. I'm not telling you that everybody has to have a big scene. You don't have to have a big scene getting yourself free, but sooner or later, you have to free yourself. Stay with me. I know you're tired. Stay with me. Okay. So how do we do this? How do we sever the ties that bind? I'm going to show you a few ways, okay? We'll practice them. Maybe they'll come up in group later. The first thing that you have to do is recognize, study and think and recognize. Ask yourself, most of you have notebooks, at some point in the next 48 hours, sit down. Think about this. Think, okay, what kinds of things has my family given me that are shit useless, that I really could do without? Anger, pettiness, revenge, all kinds of useless MOs, okay? The first thing is you have to recognize. The second is, I will teach you how to do something, okay? If you're willing. Is anybody willing? Okay, if you have anything in your hands, put it down. And sit in a neutral position. Sit in a neutral position, legs flat on the floor. Good, excellent. Now, which is your dominant hand? Your right or left? Whatever. Whatever your dominant hand or arm is, take your longest finger and your thumb and push them together and create a real pressure. Now just let your hand sit by your side. And listen to me. This is my private signal to relax. Keep the pressure going. This is my private signal to relax. You said, this is my private signal to relax. This is my private signal to relax. Once more. This is my private signal to relax. Keep the pressure going. Let your eyes close. Let your eyes close. Now I'm going to make some suggestions. This is entirely your trip. You don't have to listen to these suggestions. If you want to follow these suggestions, please do. And you'll see a very interesting result. This is how I quit smoking. After smoking for more than 20 years, it took me a day and a half to quit. I've never smoked again, 35 years ago. So keeping that pressure, knowing that this is my private signal to relax, I'd like you to picture in your mind's eye a stop sign. There's that stop sign. It's hexagonal, it's red, and it's white. And just listen to what I'm going to do, and then I'll ask you to do it. I'm going to say the letters of that stop sign as I exhale. Then I'm going to take a breath and do it again 3 times, and it goes like this. I inhale, S-T-O-P, stop. S-T-O-P, stop. S-T-O-P, stop. Now you try it yourself. Inhale, say those 4 letters, say stop, try it 3 times. Each time you say it, that's your signal to become even more relaxed, even more at ease. Every time you say to yourself, S-T-O-P, stop, that's my personal signal to become even more relaxed. Every time I think of something useless and stupid, or I get angry at somebody or something that I needn't, that is unnecessary, that doesn't help the situation, I can create this pressure between my forefinger and my thumb. I can close my eyes and picture a stop sign and say, S-T-O-P, stop. You may not believe this, but you can actually do this, and it will actually change everything you do. You can try it yourself. It will. It will change everything you do. You can beat. You would not believe what you can beat doing this. The man who taught me this broke his leg skiing, put himself into a self-hypnosis, and had experienced no pain. He had no pain. They took him off the mountain, they fixed his leg, went home. Self-hypnosis. It works. Just the power of the mind. Just S-T-O-P, stop. Now, staying with this pressure, imagine, if you will, better if you let your eyes close. Just try it. You don't have to, but try it. Trust me, it's okay. We're not going to do anything wacky, okay? Imagine that there is a piece of string attached to your wrist. And at the other end of this piece of string is a small helium-filled balloon. And this balloon starts tugging on your wrist. Let this balloon rise and let it pull your wrist up off your chair or up off your leg for just a moment. And let it just rise gently. And as the balloon tugs, and as your arm rises, with each notch that it rises, that's your signal to take yourself to a deeper, more relaxed place. Imagine that in that balloon are the people who have tormented you, are the people who have caused you deep emotional wounds. Let them go. Let them go up in the air. Let them freely go, and slowly let your arm come back down, very slowly, very slowly. In each movement downwards, you're taking yourself to a deeper, more relaxed place. A place of freedom, a place of peace, more relaxed, more at ease, until finally your hand comes completely back down to the chair. Your elbow comes back to the chair, your wrist comes back to the chair or to your leg or wherever it was, and you are very much at rest. And when you want to, you can open your eyes and feel very refreshed, as if you've had the most marvelous long sleep. Very much at ease. You can use this to go to sleep at night. If the world is driving you crazy, if your mind is spinning at night, if you're rethinking too many things, let it go, baby. Just let it go. Just let it go. S-T-O-P. I'm just letting it go. I'm going down to my optimum payoff level. my most relaxed place. Everybody okay? Everybody open their eyes? Okay? The ties that bind. We must do everything we can to learn what they are, to look them in the face, to embrace them, and then cut them off in every way we can. Understand them, say I don't want to do that anymore, consciously. Use little techniques like this, whatever it takes to clear ourselves. Now, what about the ties that bond? What are those? Remember that the family is the seat of everything, the seat of love and hate. The family is the teacher. What's that Streisand song? She has a great song about the children. Be careful what you... I can't remember how it goes. Be careful what you say in front of the children. Well, the song is called, I think, The Children Are Listening. The family is the beginning and the end of everything. Mom and dad and whoever else they were. Now, what about the ties that bond, the good stuff? I ask you to do this. You don't have to come up with it at this moment. Try to come up with it during the break and before we go into group work. What is your family's positive gift to you, or gifts? What has my family given me that really, really is great, that really works? And how can I honor that? How can I honor the good ties, the ties that bond? So I will speak for myself. And you figure this out for yourself. I find life very painful. I find life difficult. Always have. But I'll tell you something. My family gave me they've given me many things, and there's one huge one which I'll get to, but they gave me one saving thing. I have the wildest, wackiest, most active sense of humor in this room. And there isn't a day when I'm not on the floor weeping, choking, gagging with laughter. I find life is one big banana peel. It's just a big joke. It's so funny. I am so funny. You are so funny. Everything goes on is so funny. Politics is so idiotic and funny. The world is nuts and funny. And fortunately, my family were big laughers. Everybody in my family was a big laugher. I don't know anybody who wasn't a big laugher in my family. Even people I didn't like, or seemed to not like me. Okay? So that's one. That's one of the gifts I got from my family. Life's funny. If you don't have a sense of humor, you're toast. It's over. So don't forget to laugh. That's me. I grew up in a house full of books. So I read. I've always been reading. I could read before I went to school. I think in grade 2, the teacher tried to put me back to grade 1 or something. She said, David doesn't seem to be engaged. He's not interested or whatever. And my mother wrote back, David was reading Walter Scott when he was 4 years old. He can't deal with See Puff Run. Huh? He can't handle, See Spot, see Dick, see Jane. It's just, he's not there. He's already with Sir Galahad and Ivanhoe, and it's boring, right? So I'm a reader. I still read. I got a newspaper in and a book, I think. I got a newspaper in my bag. Okay? So, books. Music. Both my mother and my aunt, I grew up in a house full of adults, played the piano. All the time. They played Mozart. They played Bach. They played jazz. They played pop tunes. They played everything. One of my most wonderful childhood memories is sitting on the green sofa in our house, a little boy rocking back and forth as my Aunt Toby, who was like my sister, she's my mother's kid sister, she's just a few years old, played, Sometimes I wonder why I spend the lonely night dreaming of a song, the melody, and I rock back and forth and listen to her play Stardust. music. Got to. Okay, so my family gave me books, music, a sense of humor, and ideas, thoughts. My family was very political. We had political figures in our home visiting. We had lots of people visiting. I was born in the middle of the Second World War, so we had a lot of sick, crazy shit coming to our house during and after the war, and a lot of things to think about. But my family gave me one. Are you thinking about your family while I'm talking? Are you finding something that they gave you? Good, good. Okay, because we're going to want to hear this. But more than anything, my family gave me this. I know what my solo skill is. There's lots of things I can do okay. Some I can't do at all. Don't ask me to fix the light bulb. I'll fuck it up. I can't do it. I'm hopeless. Okay? But there's lots of things I can do, but there's one thing I do better than anything. I'm a storyteller. That's my single gift. That's what I do. So how have I made a living? I've been a therapist. I'm an actor. I'm a television and radio broadcaster. I'm a writer. I'm a storyteller. And how did I become a storyteller? Because I was the only child in a house full of grown-ups. And I sat at the kitchen table every night after dinner like this. Listening to the grown-ups talk. Listening to them tell stories. About everything. About what happened today. About their boss at work. About what happened in the old country. Somewhere zillions of miles away. Some other life they had before Canada. And so on. So I grew up listening to stories. That's my skill. And I knew at a young age that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to tell stories in some form or another. So believe it or not, your family has given you something. Now the question is, if you can figure out what it is, or what 3 things they are, or what 7 things they are, they could be anything. Horseback riding. A love of photography. I don't know. I have no idea. Everybody's different, okay? When I wrote the obituary for my mother when she passed away, may she rest in peace, I said at the end, she loved the small details of life and she loved to share them with us. And I will make myself cry because I'm a very emotional person if I tell you that one of my fondest memories is being a little boy and holding my mother's hand. And walking in City Park and having her say, "Oh, David, look at those flowers." And I still miss her and I miss my family. They tortured me in lots of ways, but they were beautiful in lots of ways. And that's what I'm saying to you. Your family drove you crazy in some ways, but they were beautiful in some other ways. And it's time to sort that out. Get the 2 boxes in front of you and sort this shit out. Figure it out. Name it. Label it. This is the good stuff. This is the bad stuff. This is the stuff I'm going to try to avoid. I'm going to work at not repeating and avoiding. I don't accept you're a bad boy or whatever. You will never amount to anything. No, we don't accept that. This is the good stuff. And how can I honor it? Well, let's say that my skill is talking or listening or being a storyteller. The question is, what do I do with that? I could be a used car salesman. I could sell junk bonds. I could become the dictator of a small banana republic. In other words, I could do lots of things with that skill that are shit useless. That are pointless or destructive. But instead, from the age of 24, I started working with people who were in trouble and trying to help them get out of the soup. And I love this kind of work. I haven't done it nonstop for 50 years. Right? But I've done a lot of it. And I love it. I'm very proud of it. I like when I can introduce you to hundreds and hundreds of people I've worked with who are clean and sober. And I'm so happy that I did that. It was something good to do in the world. Because not everything I've done in the world is good. So I need to make sure I get some credits because I've added some deficits, okay? And as a broadcaster, I've made a point of talking about public affairs. Yes, sometimes I talk about frivolous showbiz stuff. I love that. That's part of my life. And I've had a lot of fun doing frivolous showbiz stuff. Okay? That's fun. It's just fun. Okay? And fun is not a terrible thing. I used to have people by the carload tell me regularly when I used to do late night radio, "Oh, David, you sent me to bed every night laughing." Well, that's wonderful. Isn't that great? I send people to bed laughing. That's great. Instead of going to bed suicidal, someone who lives alone is going to bed cheered up. That's neat. I'm happy I did that. Okay? So, the way I can honor my bonds with my family is to do the best with what they've given me. Some of the things they've given me are hurtful. I gotta put those in perspective. And some of the things they gave me are terrific. And those things I have to put to work in the real world, not hoard them at home. Okay? So, those are my thoughts for the morning. What I ask you to do is have a nice break, relax, do whatever you're going to do, have a smoke, wander around. If you have a moment, go sit somewhere and make a couple of notes to yourself. And then we'll get it, Jess will put on the board who the groups are. And then, are we doing two groups?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And then, even after group, later tonight when you have a moment, think more about these ideas. Make them work for you. There's one last thing I want to say. It's a bit of a political message. There's a phenomenon that happens here, and you'll forgive me for doing this, but it's on my mind. There's a phenomenon that happens not just at the Orchard, but it happens at every treatment center I've ever seen. People come in pretty bad shape, and they come in to save their own lives. And the people working the center, the clinic, are doing their best to help you help yourself, okay? And inevitably, people fight with the clinic or fight with the treatment center and bitch, "Oh, this, and I didn't like this, and the food wasn't good, and why do I have to make my bed, or they didn't let me wear a kimono, or, I wasn't allowed to wear my ski boots," or I don't know what. Whatever, some horseshit. Okay? Now, I want to ask you something. I want to ask you to think about something. With whom are you fighting? Do you actually believe that you're fighting with the Orchard? Do you actually believe that you're complaining about the Orchard? Because you're not. You're still fighting with your family. Because everyone in this room is waiting breathlessly for that big moment when life will say to you, "I'm sorry." You're all waiting. You're all waiting for life to say, "Okay, I'm sorry, I dealt you the wrong cards. I shortchanged you. Okay, life was harder than you thought it was going to be. Okay, your mom was mean to you. Your dad was mean to you. Uncle Harry diddled you in the potting shed. Whatever the fuck happened. Something, okay? Guess what? It's not coming. Save your breath. Stop sitting around in anticipation, waiting for the "I'm sorry," because it's not coming. What are you fighting with the Orchard for? What are you bitching about the Orchard? Do you realize that everybody who works at the Orchard is not only skilled and thoughtful, but they really, seriously, 100% want you to do well? I've never heard, I've been working around here for about 4 months now, I've never heard anybody in private conversation say anything like, "I wish that fucking asshole would just fucking die." I've never heard anything remotely. Have you heard that? No. I've never heard anything remotely close to that. Everybody who works at the Orchard wants you to do well. Is it perfect? Imagine it's not perfect. I sorry. It's not the Four Seasons Kuala Lumpur. Imagine you don't have marble bathrooms and people waving big banana leaves to keep you cool. Sorry. But you do have a lot of people who care about you legitimately, and trust me, because I know these people. They put their hearts and souls into this work, and they care very deeply, and they think a lot. I'll tell you something that you don't know. Almost daily, people who work at the orchard will sit together and say, what about Jane? I'm concerned that Jane is blah, 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 but shouldn't we blah, blah? The people who work here think a lot about how best to help you help yourself. So for Christ's sake, stop bitching about the orchard. It really irks me. You know, you're still fighting with your family. Give it up. Think about what your complaint about your family is and deal with it. You know, go fight with them or let go. Whatever the case may be, establish your boundaries. But don't worry about the orchard. You've paid a lot of money, your folks have paid a lot of money, whoever, and you're coming here to get yourself better. So think positive. Stop being such a negative schlep. Think positive. Think I'm here for a reason. I want to do something with myself. Right? Okay. You folks are beautiful. Take a break. See you. Thank you, everybody.
15 minutes.